Hi, and welcome to Yoga for Normal People. I'm Abby, and today's practice is going to center around headaches. So, I've been actually struggling with a migraine for the last week. I'm prone to them, I know a lot of us are, and I thought I'd put together something on what I do to manage my headaches. Now, this is meant as a supplement to whatever you may be prescribed by a medical doctor. This is meant just more to take some of the tension out of your head and neck as you deal with a headache. So, a couple things that I like to use in my own practice include a blanket or a firm towel. I have a couple of yoga blocks, and I tend to prefer either the cork versions or the foam versions. If you don't have yoga blocks today, that's totally okay. I'm going to show you a couple of options without the blocks. And then generally, I like to use a rubber ball or a tennis ball as a way to sort of relieve some of the tension. So I've also included a few things that you can find around your house as well. Things like pillows, and I actually have a little eye mask here that is lavender scented, which I really like to use, especially as we get lower onto the floor. So what I'd like you to do is just come to find an easy seat, whatever that looks like. And I'm just going to take my blanket or my towel and slide it under my hips so that I can get my hips just slightly higher than my knees. It's just a little bit more comfortable place to sit. And it just sort of opens up my chest. Once you come to sit, what I'd like you to do is slowly close your eyes and just start to breathe, knowing right now that you're probably in pain and just sort of trying to sit with that pain in a very gentle and loving and supportive way. And as you close your eyes, see if you can drop your shoulders down from your ears. And let your breath come in and out with even rhythm. With every breath, imagine the muscles of your neck, the back of your head, are just releasing down and softening. Any pain or tension that may be coming up as you sit still just for a moment with your eyes closed, just imagine that it's draining down with every exhale down through your body and into the ground. It's just moving away from that space behind your head, behind your eyes. I tend to get my headaches at the back of my neck and at the front of my forehead. And I find that just doing a little sitting meditation tends to help. And once you've sort of allowed your body to settle and allowed the pain to fade a little bit from your head, I'd like you to gently open your eyes, or if you'd like, you can keep your eyes closed if it's more comfortable. Sometimes I find that I'm really light sensitive when I have a headache. You're going to take your hands to the fronts of your knees and inhale to lift your chest just slightly. And exhale, and from your shoulders round forward. So we're not doing a complete cat-cow here, just letting the head fall forward, stretching the back of the neck, letting the weight of the head move down towards the ground, and of course not going so far that our head is dropping below our heart, but just enough to stretch the back of the neck. So you're looking down into your lap. And then when you're ready, just gently drop that right ear towards your right shoulder. Take a couple easy breaths here. And on your next exhale, coming back to center. Inhaling at center, and then exhaling, keeping that same rounded shape through the shoulders, really letting those shoulders roll forward, and then dropping the left ear towards the left shoulder. I often joke about the fact that ultimately yoga teachers are selfish, and we teach what hurts in us, so we teach to what feels difficult or uncomfortable in our bodies. And headaches have always been something I've dealt with. On your next exhale, go ahead and come back to center. Inhale to lift your head, lift your chest, and slowly come back to that seated position. Take an inhale and drop your shoulders down your back. And then from here, we're just going to take our hands behind our hips and roll the shoulders back, so opening through the chest. You're just reaching back. Let your fingertips rest on the mat behind you, lifting your heart. And then take your right ear towards your right shoulder with that heart lifted. So these little moves are getting into the front scalenes, those little tiny muscles at the front of your neck that help hold your head up. And they take a lot of tension when we sit in front of our computers or when we get headaches. And then inhale up through center. Let the crown of the head come back through center. And exhale, drop that left ear towards your left shoulder. Today Gusto is particularly needy. He wants lots of attention, which is okay. I think he knows I hurt, so he's just here to support. And then inhale, come back through center. And exhale, go ahead and gently take your hands back to your knees. You can slide that blanket out from under your hips, place it off to the side. And we're going to move on to using a couple of different options to open up sort of the back of the body and release tension in the shoulders. My favorite trick, this is my go-to every time, if you have yoga blocks, this is like the best thing ever, is you're going to take your yoga blocks and you're going to place them one on the middle setting and one on the highest setting at the top of your mat. So there's about 2 inches between those two blocks. And then you're going to take your blanket or your towel and just lay it over the top of those 2 blocks. So you're just making those corners a little bit softer. And then here, turn your back to those blocks and you're going to walk your hands back just a little bit. Center yourself so that that first base block is going to come right to the base of your shoulder blades and the base of your neck. That second block is going to support the back of your head. So you'll just gently walk yourself down onto those blocks and slowly let your head come back to rest on that tall block. And here you can keep your knees bent. You can keep your feet grounded. And if you like, you can keep your palms down at first. He's decided to come visit. Or you can take your hands out to the side and turn your palms face up. So this is pretty common for Gusto. He likes to sit on my chest when I don't feel well. I think he knows that I'm hurting and uncomfortable, so this is his way of comforting me. He's a pretty funny little being. And just take a few breaths here. So if you have this set up, you can stay here. If you don't, you can optionally swap out your blocks for the blanket or towel. This is a really nice option if you don't have yoga blocks or if you're waiting for your yoga blocks to show up. What you can do with your blanket is take it into a long, kind of halfway open fold, and you're just going to roll it so that it becomes this nice long tube. And that tube you can just rest down the middle of your mat. Should be about the length from the base of your tailbone to the top of your head. And then you're going to once again turn your back to that blanket and just let your body come down and rest on that blanket. And here, this is just as good. It's a little bit softer. It's a little bit more compassionate when you're dealing with a headache. And just take a few breaths. I like to turn my palms up towards the sky, just allow sort of the experience to come in and close my eyes just gently. Just let your breath come in and out. And again, imagining any of that pain or that tension melting out of the backs of your shoulders, out of the back of your neck, down into the mat, into the floor, and moving away from your body. You can also optionally, if it feels good in your shoulders, take your arms up overhead. And if you're on the blocks, this feels pretty good too. You can always take your arms out to a T as well. But just kind of let your backs of your hands rest on the floor, or find a place where you feel like you're getting that front opening, that opening across the chest. You're also feeling a little bit of pressure from the blocks or the blanket beneath your shoulders. Just take a few breaths. Letting your body settle. Not trying to fight the headache in this situation, just allowing it to experience whatever it is it's feeling. Allowing your breath to move evenly, easily in and out, steadily. Allowing the breath to wash over you like waves. We'll stay here a few more breaths. And then when you're ready, just, if you're on a blanket, just rolling off onto the left or right and coming into the fetal position briefly, and then pressing yourself down to sit back up. If you're on the blocks, the best way to come up off the blocks is actually to turn your palms down, press yourself up, gently lift, and come off those blocks. And as you make these transitions, you may notice a little bit of that headache come back, a little bit of that pounding, and that's okay. So what we're going to do next is actually use either the block, or if you have a tennis ball, like I mentioned before, this is a great way to release tension in the back of the neck and the back of the head. So a lot of times I get these headaches right at the base of my skull, right where my skull kind of meets my neck. And my favorite thing to do is use a block to release that tension. So the best way to do this is actually set it on its middle setting. So highest setting, middle setting, and lowest setting. And in this case, you're going to look to put this edge of the block right at the base of your skull. So right at that place where your neck and your skull meet, those muscles right there can hold a lot of tension, and this can really help release them. So you're going to come back onto your back and let your head rest on that block just for a second. So if you take your hands back behind your head and just adjust where that is, and then you're going to grasp the block on either sides with your palms, and you're just going to gently tip it slightly so that that edge, that corner, you're balancing it up on its edge, is just kind of gently putting pressure at the base of the skull. And you can kind of turn it or adjust it. If it's too high, you can always put it on its lowest setting and then turn the block. That works too. You're just using the muscles in your hands. And then once you find those places where you feel like there's a little tension, and I did this earlier today, you're just going to rock your head from side to side, shaking your head no very slowly, letting the block just release some tension right at the base of your skull. So any kind of resistance you might have there, any kind of holding, really kind of just letting the block and gravity do the work to release tension at the base of the skull. I find a lot of times this is a great move if I've been sitting at the computer a lot, if I've been reading a lot. This tends to really feel good. So keep doing that if you have a block. If you don't, reach over, grab your tennis ball, or whatever ball you can find. And you can do a similar thing. This time you're just going to take your hands behind your head like you're about to do a sit-up. Don't worry, we're not doing sit-ups today. And you're just going to let that ball kind of find those places in your head and neck that need a little love. So allowing it to start on the right side and just work into that base connection where the skull meets the neck. Just gently shaking your head from side to side. Continuing to breathe. And then switching sides and doing the left side. And do it only as long as it feels good and feels comfortable to you. And once you've done that work with the block and the ball, you can just set those off to the side and let your head come down to rest on the mat. You can take your hands to your belly. Maybe walk your feet in a little bit closer to your hips, and then simply slide them slightly wider than your hips so they come to the wide edges of your mat, and then you can let your knees knock towards one another. And just take a few breaths. We are going to move into a nice restful Savasana with a little guided meditation. So if you'd like, if you have a small rag or a small bandana or washcloth, or if you're like me and you have a nice little eye pillow, you can just simply place that over your eyes and then walk your legs in towards the midline and take both legs out long if that feels good, or you can keep them bent. You can also use the pillows under your knees. And just come on into your Savasana. And as you rest, slowly let your breath come in and out. Not trying to constrain it or constrict it, not trying to change it in any way. But just letting your natural breathing settle your body down into the mat. And as you breathe, imagine that cool water is taking your pain away, whether that's trickling over the top of your scalp, running along sides of your body, taking away any tension or pressure in the back of the head, the back of the neck. With every exhale, that cool water just trickles down off your forehead, off your scalp, down the back of your neck, drawing with it any heat, any discomfort, any colored lights, any sort of auras that you might be fighting with. Imagine that cool water just washing over your body and taking it away. With every breath, you allow your body to sink deeper. Feel the weight of your body on the mat. Feel the softness of your breath. And continue to rest here until you feel it's time to move. And when and if you do feel it's time to move, you can slowly and compassionately just reach up, take that towel or washcloth or eye pillow off your eyes, place it off to the side, and gently bend your knees, Place your feet on the mat and roll off to the left or right. Come briefly into fetal position. And allow your body to rest there just for a moment. And then when you're ready, you can gently roll your shoulders more towards the earth and press down to sit up. Find an easy seat. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Namaste.